This is Future Fork, a show that explores the world of food and the decisions we can make today that will shape our future. On the show, you'll hear from innovators in the food space. We'll have disruptive conversations with people from around the globe who are taking the lead on topics like food sustainability, ending world hunger, food security, and so much more. I'm your host, Paul Newnham. In this episode, we're talking to Rasmus Munk, the visionary chef behind Copenhagen's 2 Michelin-starred Alchemist, and one of the most boundary-pushing voices in food today. He's known for weaving science, art, activism, and storytelling into immersive dining experiences that challenge how we see the world far beyond the plate. In today's conversation, we're exploring how bold experimentation has shaped his journey. You'll hear about how he uses the dining room as a stage for social and environmental issues, his work turning CO2 into edible protein, and why he believes chefs can be catalysts for food system change. Let's get into it. Well, welcome. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's dive straight in. So you've created some amazing, wild and wonderful dishes in your restaurant and all of the other projects that you're running. How do you know when an idea deserves to become an experience more than just a dish?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's mainly starting with being a experience here, like a storytelling or something I want to say or express. I think that's probably the big difference between Alchemist and maybe other restaurants sometimes, is that as a chef, many times you start with the ingredients and then you transform them and have an idea of how to cook them and with flavors and we also have much focus on the craft itself and the ingredients and how it should taste, but it many times starts with an idea and a concept. So that's kind of the narrative that we're working within. And then to know when it's there and say this is a dish that's going on the menu is a hard thing to put into some Excel sheets and say this is if you tick all of these boxes, it will be a success, or it will come on the menu, because we really try to kind of like getting systems around that, because that's one of our challenges, is that I need to kind of like being involved in all of that developing and make sure that I see myself in it when it come on the menu. And that's quite hard to say this is ticking off these boxes and then it's good. So it's a kind of a feeling as well with the food, and if it resonates with me and especially with the concept and the storytelling of that.
So how do you find the balance between kind of provoking diners and keeping them open to the story you want to tell? Because I'm sure there's a line there where you can maybe go too far or make them feel so uncomfortable how do you find that line?
Yeah, that's we tested off in a lot of people in-house as well. We have 36 different nationalities here, so it's also different what is challenging people and what is provoking. Example, like I think like lamb brain is very provocative for a lot of guest diners, but there's also a lot of diners where that's a delicacy and some things they really enjoy to eat, and the same go for many of the ingredients that we tend to feel like it's gross, something that we don't enjoy in Europe or US. They're our guests mainly from Asia or some region in France and Italy, where they've been raised up with eating innards and the whole animal and all of these things. There's less provoking. And then we have, of course, the social commenting, things like child labor in the chocolate industry, in general, in some of the bigger industries that we have, and in part of the world, hunger, which is also something that provoke people a lot in the restaurant. So subjects like that tend to start some discussions and debates through the night. But we try to find that balance where it doesn't take away what was intended to say and get out there. So if it starts getting completely away from what we were actually trying to explain, or then we will change it and change the storytelling and the narrative, because that's important, because it doesn't make sense to provoke so much that you're losing the attention of the guest as well. But it's a fine line, and there is also guests that has been saying this is completely nonsense. How can you talk about this in a restaurant where I'm paying as a guest? So, but I would say majority of people enjoy that kind of like both like education and cultivation as well in a restaurant, that they can sit and get these kind of statements and debates and have the conversation and reflect upon things.
So do you think, is it more about the conversation, the issues that you're trying to communicate, or is it about the food? Like what?
I think it's both things. I think if it's talking about hunger in the third world and talking about plastic in the oceans, and when you get the fish served on the table, it's overcooked and needed salt, and it would be a very bad experience. So I think as other good arts as well, when it needs to be, the fundamental things need to be very good craftsmanship, and I think that's what we dedicated a lot of time as well, and labor into getting it crafted as you will do on any other kind of fine dining restaurant. And then we just have the layer on top of that, where when we go down to the table and talk about the dish, we don't talk about the five ingredients there was for these five beautiful farmers. We talk about maybe the soil in the ground, or Ukraine, or like surveillance society, or whatever can be the context. And sometimes as well, we talk about ingredients where we feel like this is amazing. We have a right now a tartar on the menu from beef, which is why do you do that if you want to save the planet? And we have. It's a holistic farmer in Denmark, where the cows is holistic grassing. So they go around and change grass fields every day, which actually make the production is a project the Danish government and KU, Copenhagen University, and the UN did, where they have calculated there's actually carbon negative to produce this beef in the holistic setup. And of course, there's way less animals that you will have in industrialized beef production. But I think it's interesting in a restaurant like ours also to talk about these things, and that's also a reason why we have not become completely vegan or vegetarian. We want to talk about that. I still believe in a future where we need to eat animal. I think we need to eat less of it and a better quality, and then we need to eat the whole animal. So when we serve cow's udder in the restaurant, or we serve the lamb brains, we will always serve some part of the animal that's not like the fillet that you can go down and get in the supermarket.
Yeah, I mean, food is so personal to everyone, and there's so many different scenarios. Often when people ask, they want a universality of food, but it's not universal. It's unique to places and spaces and time, and there's so many elements. So when you think about Alchemist today, you've achieved a huge amount in what you've built there. What part of the immersive format still feels untapped, or is waiting to be explored? Because you've gone so far already, but where are you excited to kind of continue? What parts do you think we need to still look at?
Yeah, I think if we right now we still see restaurants as a meal, going to restaurants in that way to fulfill yourself and have a good time, and I'm interested to see if restaurants at some point in life will get the recognition it needs from, I think, from a society of be as appreciators as art. I think there's a lot of countries around the world like France or Italy and Japan and stuff like that have food as a culture, is a heritage culture which you need to protect. But I don't think there's any parts in the world where they have identified and also acknowledged that food can be an artistic medium. And I think it can be that on the same page as painters and musicians and scenography and stuff like that. And I think if you look at restaurants through the times now in the world, there has been some of the top ones. That's sometimes they even cultivated the whole society or a whole world. So I think that must be the definition of art, that is very cultivating and it's very good quality and the craftsmanship is there. And I think that's possible to also achieve within food. So I hope that maybe at some point that will happen, and maybe then formats of restaurants will change. Maybe even we have a new word of what is it, because is Alchemist also a restaurant? I think if you go into the Google reviews, the TripAdvisor, which I read every time I come a new review. There's a lot of people describe it as a non-restaurant, and I think that's and we still call it restaurant probably of the lack of a word for it, but it's more like a live. Gesamtkunstwerk with food, or like an opera with food, like what is it? And I hope that kind of format will be explored more in the future, and there will be the possibility to practice this kind of artistic medium without needing to have it operating like a classic restaurant in a way.
No, I think you've managed to do that in so many different ways. And food can be this real ability, this force for change. It can be a way for us to not only experience art, but to also talk about issues that maybe are challenging. Food always communicates our identity, our culture, our journey, our space, our place. Talking a little bit about Spora, you've been working on this CO2 to protein with Spora. What has most changed your understanding of what food can be through that project?
With that specific project, it's just started the consortium now, where we're going to make the food prototypes of the protein extracted from CO2. I think it's fundamental as a chef that you suddenly have a raw material that is CO2, and that doesn't sound very delicious. And the whole thing in your head about that food needs to come from the ground, and that has been when I first read about it like a couple of years ago, that was tricky to understand and also to appreciate, maybe like saying, okay, can this be a thing? But I would also say in general, with the work that we have done at Spora, I would say my brain has been really open for a lot of like things and concepts and ideas, and also like challenged it a lot when we talk with some of these actors out there that can have a big impact, because it's not so black and white as we tend to do it as chefs as well. And chefs sometimes can be this, I would say, a little sphere of it need to be within this kind of field. We need to be sustain our own greens ourselves, and we need to, or everything need to be biodynamic, or otherwise I cannot like and I mean, it's just a fact that we cannot produce food enough then to feed the whole planet, especially not if we become 10 billion people. And then there's like the shift in diet. I think that's also amazing, that if we could go out and shift the whole diet tomorrow for all people around the world, we could eventually sustain our planet and feed the population also of 10 billion people. But when I look at my mother, like that will never happen. She will still eat her, like, so I think that transition will just be too slow, and we have unfortunately cultivated a world where the status as it is right now. And I think we need alternatives, I think, to get there fast enough, and then hopefully also like investing in the new generation so they can take the right choices. And I think that's just completely, at least in Denmark, is a huge paradox that we're talking about green transitions and making new innovations, and we need to change this and this and this, and at the same time we don't use any time and money on educating our new generation of going out actually and taking healthy, sustainable choices. I think it was a newly report came out from Arla Foundation in Denmark that say that 6 out of 10 kids leaving the primary school cannot cook an egg. So how should they ever go out and cook legumes, or take broccoli and turn it into a delicious meal, because they don't have the skill set to do it? So I think there's a big paradox in the whole politics around that. I think to invest in the newer generation is the only way that we're going to change the shift that part fast enough. And until that time will appear on the market itself is going that direction. I think we need alternatives out there, and I think if you can create a protein that is without using any agricultural land, it will have a huge potential in the carbon footprint of the protein, but also prices could be eventually very interesting. And if you can make something that's delicious, and that's the important thing. If we can turn this futuristic powder, as it sounds like, if you can turn that into something that's really nice, texture-wise is good, and we can compete with the alternative. We need to be either like be as good as it or even better, and then compete on the price. Then I think it could be a game changer in the way that you ferment and do new things, because you don't need any agricultural land in this. And I think there was some calculations from in the project that if you took just the CO2 from concrete factories in India, you could reduce the agricultural land with the size of Argentina. So I mean, the potential in this project is quite amazing. Yeah. So I hope we will succeed doing some amazing, good tasting food with that, because that would be a future very interesting protein source.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear and maybe taste in the future some of the outcomes from the project. You've been involved in lots of things. So across Spora, junk food, you've also just been involved in a World Food Program partnership. What are you discovering about the influence of a chef and how it can go beyond restaurants, beyond the kitchen, beyond food?
Yeah, but I think chefs can be kind of like a lot of things in this, and many times when you talk about our industry and craft, it is a little bit like it's talked up as is the new artist, the new rock stars and stuff like that. But I would say the industry is quite conservative. Like it's quite stocked in tradition and what it's been from. And then yes, of course, maybe it's a creative way that you serve your food, but you're still within this frame of pleasure, and it needs to be enjoyable. You cannot disgust people in a restaurant, and I think you can do that. I think it's a very strong element of getting people to like get a deep experience. And so I think we're actually quite conservative in our world, and I think we need to understand that there's more to do as a chef out there than maybe advertising for products in the food industry, because that's the way the chefs been used today. I think every time I talk with a food journalist, you need, like, when you want to capture a picture, you need to stand with a fish on the shoulder, or like have a fireplace burning in front of, like, yeah, or a knife like this, and crush your arms is very important, so you look angry. And I mean that's just this narrative of like, how does a chef look like? And for me, I'm sitting more on a desk, and is concept developing what I want to do in the future, and what kind of like storytelling do I want to put on this, and like what event do I want to be part of. And I think chefs can have this kind of being part of building that narrative. I think chefs have a vital role to play in the future. I as we've seen it so far with Spore, that many times there's missing this kind of gastronomical due diligence in building a new protein or a new product, where many times the chefs is attached in the end of the product, when all of the capex has been done to the technology or whatever. It's many times led by technology and entrepreneurs that they can see a gap in the market. I think this is a very interesting idea, but I think the fact is you see that also with some of the alternative meats that's on the market, alternative milk and stuff like that. If it's not as good as the alternative, if the mouth-feeling textures, taste is not there, it will not survive. So I think that, and also I think people and companies start to figuring out that they need to have this kind of gastronomical due diligence from the start off. And then it's just to also understand that a chef is not just a chef. Like there's also like I've met companies where they hire the chef, and they thousands of researchers, and they have one chef on the team, and that chef is specialized in desserts maybe, and setting and working on alternative protein. But I think chefs can play a big role in those things. So I also hope to see more chefs active in that kind of, and also in that way create a new revenue stream for them within the restaurant industry, where it's hard to create a financial sustainable business as well.
So, I mean, you were talking a little bit about the connection between getting people to actually change behaviors and eat different things. So, when you're looking at new technologies or different ingredients, what helps you see whether something could genuinely scale into everyday diets? Like, what do you think? You've mentioned it's got to taste good. It's got to be, like, what are the things that people really need to focus on?
Yeah, I think taste, mouth feelings, textures. Mouth feelings tend to be forgotten in that. Like, I think people understand nowadays that it needs to taste good. Even the biggest companies out there, is like taste needs to be our guidance. But also like mouth feels and textures for me is equal as important. Like, how does the alternative to chocolate melt in your mouth? That's quite important. If it's stick in your teeth, it's more like a caramel, it will not be a success. Like, so things like that really need to be there. Then I think it needs to be something that you have some kind of relationships to that product in front of you. I'm tired of every alternative protein need to look like a patty. But I also understand that you need to make something that when you are in the supermarket, you maybe have 10 minutes to take your grocery, and you need to go back home and make a food for family. You don't take some completely outrageous, new, innovative solutions and try to take them up and see how can I do food with this. So we need also to, I will say, introduce these things in a way that is easy and understandable. But I think it's also important that there's a price point as well. That's very important in our society we're living in today. And then I think the product itself needs to be as good as it can be, and be something that where you, when you taste the first time, you say, okay, I would really like to buy this again. And then I think many times the people don't know what they want. Like I don't think there was anybody that knew they wanted to buy chocolate before it became a thing. Or my mother, which is like she's a terrible chef, and we never had a good meal in my house. And now her favorite thing to eat is sushi. But there's a sushi restaurant in the little hometown in Jutland, which is more on the farmer side. And the only reason why she liked the sushi is because it's a deep fried ebi shrimp with some chili mayonnaise on the top, which it tastes fine. It's good. So I just think people don't know exactly what they want, but they can buy into it in an easy way, and it tastes good, and it have a price point that's to follow. That would be nice.
So what inner tension or curiosity is shaping your creativity right now?
Oh, there's a lot of things. We're privileged to have so many, I will say, outcomes, places where you can outcome with creativity in the restaurant. So it's all from the content in the dome. I'm sitting actually in front of special content that's made for the dome here, which is our VFX departments. We have 9 VFX artists in the house, industrial designers, script writers, and people within just a dedicated studio team that we normally see on film sets to make these kind of 3D contents. And right now, because we bought a computer which can do real time content as well, so I'm checking up now if it's possible to do a dish where we can spray like in a spray bottle. So imagine the whole dome become completely dark. We have this protein that we worked on for some years together with a company in the States, which glow in the dark and you use normally for different surgeries. So we made that into an edible version and served like a glow in the dark cocktail. It doesn't need any UV light or anything. So if we had that in kind of like dark spray bottles, so you could not see that it was glowing, and then in the dome when everything was turned off, you could spray and there will come this glow in the dark spray out, but at the same time you will activate with a hidden button in that our VFX system, which will then create a spraying content in the dome, and then all of the diners together is making the content with spraying, but also getting the aromas out there in the room. So I think just a specific idea. Just before this I was in a meeting with that person that make the technology for that. So it's things like that, and then to go at Spore one day and see this new potato protein. How can we get this to taste good? How can we work on that? Is there a way to break through this hidden flavors that probably is in there? To talk with World Food Program about getting money for the projects and how we can assist with try to solve hunger. So in that way, I feel privileged that it's more than one canvas to be creative on.
And I'm sure there's connections between the different projects, which then help unlock. When you are in new technologies, new environments, even space, you're talking about space, it's all unfamiliar. It's how do you navigate the uncertainty that comes with this innovation?
Yeah, but I think that's also sometimes it's just stupid questions. I don't have anything beside primary school and then YouTube and Google, and I think there's a lot of things that I don't know anything about, and I think I know a lot. I know a small bit about many things, and I think that's helping me sometimes to put the right questions for is then this possible to do with an open API in your system here, or like if you rat studies in Spora that we do for some of the proteins that we develop. Have you ever tried to expose these rats for aromas? And they was like, like, no, why should we have done that? Because we're also smelling as human beings. And so I think to put the right questions sometimes, or like the stupid questions out there in the room, and have the perspectives as chefs, and then sometimes there's a very good reason why you're not doing it. So I'm also getting clever, more clever and clever. But I'm very into getting to know new things, and try to discover new fields as well. And I also have got some kind of naive, which can be expensive in the long run, to believe that this will be the next thing, and probably will. Then many times is not the new thing over there, but we're trying to investigate a lot in that case. And then when we go into projects like the CO2 project or the space project that we are part of, then we try to really put a lot of effort into understanding the complexity of it to a certain level, and then with experts around us as well, to make sure that we can come and deliver something to the table that's maybe a new creative perspective.
What would you say, with all these projects on the go, is the thread that ties everything together?
I think impact in is my, I would say, buzzword. I think that's important for me. Like everything that we do, I want to have some kind of impact in it, and I think I can justify and believe that Alchemist is a restaurant that's searching for that. And I also have done products, like, because I mean, a restaurant like this, you can, the most sustainable thing will be from day to day will just be to shut the restaurant down. But as a restaurant like this, you get attention, you get a platform, you get, we speaking together right now. You reaching other audience that you have done if you had your little bistro in your local society at home in Randers, where everything would probably be easier for me if I was living that kind of life. But you will not have the possibility then to make our organization Junk Food, which has been operating since 2020 and now is sustaining all social vulnerable people in like, it's cover whole Denmark now. Now it's national. So we're doing 1,500 meals every day, and things like that will never have become a success, or could have funded the money and stuff like that, if I didn't have the platform as Alchemist. So in that way, I think, looking at the long run of Restaurant Alchemist, I hope that we will close the doors, and then you can say, okay, they actually, this was a spin-off that made this happening, and this was like maybe a new protein, like, because it was a spore apart. And the same with the space project. I love the research behind it. It's carbon neutral flight. That's very important. So it's a hydrogen balloon that's taken up, developed by NASA. And I think the whole research there's about that, it's amazing, because if you can use some of this research, as I gave an example of the space bread with the soy sauce, there's put a lot of air in. Now we're taking that element and put it into the kids hospital, and we're getting all of the kids to get the kids that have a hard time swallowing things that's crispy. They will now have this provided as a new technology, a new way of cooking there. And we're now looking at the elder as well segments on other hospitals in Denmark. They have a hard time swallowing things that's crispy, but would like the satisfaction of that, and giving them more happiness and enjoyable the meal. So I think impact is probably what's bringing all of it together. I think I'm not doing many things that's not have that as an end goal of the project.
And I definitely think, you can see that impact come through in the work and the projects that you're working on. And I think it also, there's this connection of stretching and creating space. And I think innovators are always creating space. They're taking the edges out beyond which enables people to shift. It enables new ideas to come in. It enables change. And I think this is really critical for us to meet the challenges in an ever changing world that's moving faster than ever, with lots of things to do. So I think, it's a real credit having innovators doing that and really moving forward. So keep up the good work on that. One thing I like to ask everyone on these conversations is something that connects us. And, I want to ask you a little bit about a food memory that's shaped you and who you are today. There's always memories that shape us, and they stick for all kinds of reasons. But what's a food memory that's really shaped who you are today?
Oh, there's many bad ones.
They can be bad sometimes.
It's quite crazy, because my food memories is really, really bad. Like I had a mother with this. It's not. I promised her not to say it on Danish medias anymore. But you don't listen to things that's in English. But it has been never something that has been important in our childhood. So some of the strongest memories has been some of the most simple things that I loved, which was like strawberries with cream with my grandmother. Like to go out picking the strawberries ourselves in the summer and pour some cold milk on top of that with a little bit of cream. That's like. That's a memory that stays strong, and like when you also wash the strawberries, you get all of these aromas to in your face, and that's very strong, powerful memory for mine. So I love that kind of things. But beside that, it's very very limited. But I have a very good food memories.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you've got a lot going on, and I really appreciate the conversation, and keep up the good work.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for letting me be part of this.
You've been listening to Future Fork, a show that explores the world of food and the decisions we can make today that will shape our future. Future Fork is produced by Disruptive Consulting Solutions and supports the SDG2 Advocacy Hub. For more info, head to the website futureforkpodcast.com. This show was produced with strategy and production support from Wavelength Creative. So you don't miss an episode of Future Fork, make sure to subscribe to or follow the show in your podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find the show. I'm Paul Newnham, and I'll see you in the next episode.